Okay, can I have everyone's attention, please? We're going to get started. This is the 2015 Budget Committee public hearing. Thank you all for coming. My name is Elizabeth DeBrule. I'm the Budget Committee Chair. I want to introduce my fellow Budget Committee members here tonight. We have, first of all, our minute taker, Joanne Duffy, down on the end, David Pierce, Diane McCarthy, School Board Rep, Ruth Gage, Brian Fournier, Lee Sperry, Joe Spurl, Elizabeth Mitchell, Richard Fletcher is in the back there. He's the Goffstown Water Precinct Rep, Pam Manny, Mark LeMay, who is the Selectmen's Rep, and David French. And tonight we are missing the Vice Chair, Guy Karen, and we are also missing Shay Sennett and Brian Lewis. And before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge briefly there are several members of the Board of Select, or a couple of members of the Board of Selectmen here tonight, if they could stand up. There's one. I know there's another one floating around. Oh, there he is over there. And then Mark, obviously. And school board members, could we have them stand up as well? There's 1, 2, 3. 3 of those. Okay. Yeah? Okay. State reps, we have one, David Pierce, who does double duty there. And I think that's it for our state. Oh, sorry. No, Ruth is former and Pam is former. Okay, so we are going to start tonight with the school district presentation. Everybody knows the process, so I'm not going to take time to go through that, but this is a little dry, and I apologize. We're going to kind of zip along, give you guys the numbers, and answer any questions or listen to any comments. So the proposed operating budget for the 2015-2016 school year is $40,114,226. It's an increase of $1,776,661 over the current year's budget, or an increase of roughly 4.6%. Am I? Oh, thank you. Okay, so you can see here the breakdown of what the initial requests were, what the administration's budget was, the school board's budget, and then when it came to the budget committee. You'll notice that those two numbers at the end are the same. The budget committee spent several nights asking questions, talking to school representatives, administration representatives, and we debated several motions and talked through it. In the end, we did not make any adjustments to the school board's budget. Just for clarity, there are 3 funds in the school budget, what is collectively called the school budget. The first one is the general fund, Fund 10. You can see the numbers here. Hopefully they're large enough. Maybe not. But basically the difference between the proposed budget and the current budget, it's an increase of $1,785,162. And this is the operating fund for the schools. The next budget is the food service budget. This one is a small decrease. This is a self-funding budget. So they only spend what they take in, and it's all funded. It's not funded by tax dollars. And the last part of this is the special revenue fund. This has not changed from year to year. This is a lot of grant funding that goes in and out. The budget committee doesn't impact that either. The default budget is this year. The default budget is $40,063,196. The difference between the two, and you do have summary sheets, hopefully, that you can follow along in some sense. The difference between the two budgets is only $51,030. So what accounts for the increase in the budget? Especially the default budget, you'll notice, has a fairly substantial increase. So most of it is employee contracts. These were voted in by the voters in March for faculty and staff. That's an increase of $685,000 roughly. Insurance went up for both health insurance and property insurance. Retirement, which is mandated by the state, that went up $143,000. Special education costs went up substantially, over $1 million. Some of that is offset with incoming revenue. Charter schools, transportation, and the math program at the high school. That is the one item in here that's discretionary. It's for about $65,000. We're going to be talking about that a little later on. Almost all of these costs go up regardless of whether the proposed budget is passed or not. These are all factored into the default. One thing to keep in mind is that enrollment in our district has stayed pretty stable. I know we've all heard a lot about Dunbarton leaving and the impact that would have. It has actually not had that as great of an impact as we thought it was going to have. Mountain View in particular, Mountain View no longer has Dunbarton students, and yet you'll see that their enrollment is great. I mean, it's stayed nice and stable. It's a little up. Part of that is because of the Villa closing. Part of that is because Goffstown and New Boston have bucked the state trends, and we have more people with students coming in and moving here. Just a school-by-school breakdown, and we'll go through the numbers and also the what's changed for each of these. At Glen Lake, there is a almost $76,000 increase. There aren't any new programs or major changes being introduced at Glen Lake. Almost all of those increases are due to contractual salary increases, health insurance, retirement, special education costs, and utilities. Maple Ave has an increase of $147,000. Again, most of those changes are due to contractual salary increases, health insurance, retirement, special education, and utilities. There's also going to be some increased security measures at the school, more cameras, and new exterior doors, and some minor maintenance projects. Bartlett, the increase there is about $37,000. Again, it's the same thing, contractual salary increases, health insurance, retirement, utilities. Special education costs actually went down slightly at this school. Mountain View, it's an increase of $395,000 roughly. The same things are responsible, the salary increases, health insurance, retirement, special education, and utilities. There's also a shifting here because of the additional students or the high levels of numbers of students at Mountain View. They needed more teachers this year. So instead of hiring new teachers, the school district is essentially repurposing 1.5 positions from the high school to Mountain View. So these are not new hires. They're teachers that were, positions that were at the high school, which are now being shifted to Mountain View to cover that and keep the class sizes where we want them. At the high school, there's an increase of $574,000. Again, the same things are responsible: salary increases, health insurance, retirement, special education, utilities. The custodial hours have been increased slightly due to the age of the building. There are some technology repairs and replacements at the high school, nothing major, and no smart boards. And the new math curriculum is a new curriculum. The school district can do a better job explaining this at their deliberative session, but in brief, the new math curriculum at the high school we felt was necessary because at the middle school they have introduced a new math curriculum a few years ago. It has been so successful that now the kids are learning in middle school the things that they normally would have learned in high school, and the high school curriculum has become in part redundant. So we need a new math curriculum so that it is as challenging as what they're finding in middle school. And finally, the district costs. These are the things that are district-wide, things like substitutes, a lot of special education positions, and athletics, technology. That is up by $556,000. Again, salary increases, health insurance, retirement, special ed, and utilities. All the technology is already included in the school's budget. There was very little technology changes. In athletics, there were a few changes. They're hoping to hire 2 coaches, additional coaches for lacrosse. Those are going to be reimbursed by the Booster Club. And in Mountain View sports, due to the overwhelming number of students becoming involved, They are talking about hiring more coaches for track, softball, and baseball. Revenue projections. In the past couple of years, this has been the really important number because the revenue has fallen so much. This year, there's a slight increase in the revenue, $308,000. So tuition, we're getting less tuition from Dunbarton, obviously, because we only have maybe less than half of those students left in the high school. But state adequacy aid and catastrophic aid is up slightly. And the tax impact. The current tax rate is $13.96. The projected tax rate with this budget would be $15.47. That's an increase of $1.51 on the tax rate. The default budget, because it is so close to the proposed budget, is only 3 cents less. So the tax rate for the default would be $15.44, or a difference of $1.48. Okay, that is it for the schools. Give me a second here to pull up the town one. Okay, so the town side. The proposed operating budget on the town side is $20,783,922. It's an increase of $1,202,978 over the current budget, or roughly 6%. You can see here the department head's initial requests, the Board of Selectmen's budget, and the Budget Committee's proposed budget. We eliminated $817,575 from the Selectmen's budget. The default budget would be $19,409,052. The difference is $1,374,871. I have to preface this by saying that the selectmen have not yet approved the default number. It was just introduced to them last night, and I believe they're going to vote on it Monday at their meeting on Monday. So what's changed in the town side? All non-union employees received a 2% wage increase with corresponding increases to benefits. If everyone will remember, last year the Budget Committee removed that 2% increase, so they did not receive any wage increase last year. And I'm happy to report that finally, on the town side, health insurance costs actually went down a little bit this year. Department by department, we have the town hall. It's a pretty small increase, $4,412 over last year's budget. The new items they have, and I've listed some down below here, for everything with an asterisk, it means the funding is actually in CIP, not in the operating budget for their department. But at the same time, it all goes in that department. They're looking at new flooring for the top floor of Town Hall. This is in response to safety concerns that the state has voiced about the flooring we have. A master plan update. Generally, these are, I think by law, they're required to be done every 10 years, and we're pretty much done. The last one was in 2006. By the time this budget is passed and the master plan is updated, it'll be 2016, so we're on the 10-year cycle. Milfoil eradication. Last year, this was a separate warrant article. This year, it's part of the operating budget, and the amount of that has also been increased to $15,000. The police department, it's an increase of $42,000 roughly. They are looking at 3 police SUVs. Last year they got 2, and this year it's 3. And the 30th police officer. And you can see roughly the cost there is $28,000 for salary and benefits. That's for 6 months. If the budget is passed in March, they would hire in the spring, and the officer would start in July. And I believe the officer has to go to the academy first, and then, but they start receiving wages in July. The fire department deserves a little round of applause because they have a decrease. They have a decrease of $28,000. The big thing in their budget this year is the self-contained breathing apparatus cylinders. You may remember last year this was in a separate warrant article. We had applied for a grant. Unfortunately, we didn't get the grant, even though the warrant article was passed. We are required by law to change these self-contained breathing apparatus this year, 2015. The chief has figured out a way that instead of replacing the entire breathing apparatus, he's going to replace the cylinders, which is still safe, and it complies with the law. And then at a later point, we'll be replacing the rest of the apparatus. But by this means, he's breaking it into two pieces for us. Public Works, that's always a biggie. It's an increase of $571,000. The differences in this year's budget are there's an additional $500,000 in the road plan. Also, the way that this money was budgeted, more of the maintenance money was moved into the operating budget for the road plan. So those lines have increased. The CIP amount has stayed the same for the road plan, roughly. It's a little bit more. But the lines in the operating budget that are used to maintain the roads have gone up. So the total result is there's $500,000 more in this budget going to our roads than there was in the current budget. There are 4 DPW vehicles and equipment. This is almost exactly the same amount of money we put in last year to buying vehicles and equipment. The detention pond reclamation, this I believe is a new item. A lot of our detention ponds have not had the reclamation work that they needed, which has led to some flooding. This is the start of a long process that's going to take several years to dredge those ponds and hopefully alleviate some flooding issues. The Unkanunik Dam repairs, pretty self-explanatory. Several bridge deck repairs. And finally, stormwater operations. This is a pretty substantial increase of over $150,000. And this was a new department last year, the stormwater operations, or a new division within DPW. And briefly, I will defer, if there's more questions about this, I can defer to Mike Hillhouse from DPW. But briefly, back in around 2006, 2007, 2008, the federal government passed some legislation where we had to start testing our water. Unfortunately, they tested our water very soon after the Mother's Day floods, and they found that it was almost all contaminated because of the floods. Now, new federal legislation has been introduced that is going to make it very costly if you have a waterway on this watch list that we're on. So what the town is trying to do is get ahead of this issue by aggressively testing our water. We're trying to get our waterways off of the watch list before the watch list is transformed into this new federal list that's going to be very difficult to get off of and very expensive to be on. Okay. Parks and Rec, they have an increase of $4,541. The main difference here is repairs to both of the pavilions at Barnard Park and Roy Park. That $67,000 is a total amount. That's not each. And the library, they have a pretty substantial difference of almost $18,000. This is based on their expenses from the GMILK system, by which we borrow books from other libraries, and also increased programming due to demand. And finally, CIP. Now, I've already mentioned all the CIP items in their respective departments, but collectively, it's a separate section of the budget. So you can see it's a pretty big increase of $744,000. And 500,000, that would 50,000 would be the road plan. Revenue projections. I should preface this by saying the revenue projections suppose a 1% growth in town valuation, which I believe we exceeded last year. If Sue DeRusso could nod her head, we exceeded 1% growth last year. And this also assumes no changes in the veterans tax credits, no changes in the elderly exemptions. And again, this number, you'll see the $7,123,558. It's not yet been approved by the Board of Selectmen. They're going to do that at their Monday meeting as well. So revenue is up slightly as well. And the tax impact. Without special articles, the current tax rate is $9.31. Without special articles, the proposed tax rate would be $10.07, or a 76-cent increase. For the default budget, it would actually be a decrease of 26 cents. Special warrant articles. We are just going to introduce these briefly. I have to preface this by saying the Budget Committee has not yet discussed special warrant articles. Some of this material might actually be new to the committee, might be hearing it for the first time tonight. We are introducing it because the public needs to know about any warrant article that involves money. And I'm going to have some people speak very briefly about their warrant articles. Also, I want to point out that the Budget Committee, we cannot change the dollar amount on warrant articles. We can only vote to recommend them or not recommend them, which we will be doing tomorrow night at our meeting. So we have not weighed in on any of these yet. So for the first two collective bargaining agreements, I'm going to turn it over to our Selectmen's Rep, Mark LeMay.
Good evening, everyone. As we look up here on the board, some of the handouts and some of the things that I want to point out tonight for the contracts that we're bringing forward. The matrix, both for the police and the dispatchers, we've replaced very old 9-step matrix, which had 4% steps in them at one point in time, and now we have gone to a new 20% or 20-step matrix, which has 2% increases, and they have capped. They're capped out where the other ones before were not capped out. Longevity. Longevity used to be done with your pay. Now it's a flat rate. Overtime does not be calculated in this rate as well. Health insurance. We've dealt with health insurance. The dental plans. Dental plan went up from $750 to $1,200 per member. Life insurance did go up from $50,000 to $100,000. That's calculated on their base pay that they make. Vacation, pretty much the replace vacation schedule with the same vacation schedule for non-union employees, calculated in the overtime cost for the vacations for the patrolmen and the dispatchers as well. So the points that I talk about here are basically what you see up there, which will make the difference in the collective bargaining units. That's pretty much it.
Okay. Next is the Transportation Inductory Program. I'm going to have Selectman Georgantis speak on that.
I've got to read all this stuff. Last year, it was voted by the town to come up with a committee interested in looking at accessible transportation to town residents, handicap. So this year we had our committee. The committee members were Fred Robinson chaired it, Joanne Duffy, Paul Hebert, Barbara Charbonneau, Eileen Lee, Jean Mazzarella, James Butcher, Brian Fournier was the budget committee rep, Bill Coker, and myself as the selectman's rep. We had numerous meetings, and I'm sorry, Red, I forgot Red McGregor. So we had numerous meetings, and we came up with a plan. We talked with Sauhegan Transportation. They came in and gave us a presentation on how they put their plan together. And we had Easter Seals come in and talk with us, and then we had Manchester Transit come in and talk with us. After all the discussions, we've come up with a plan which would give us 3 days a week, 5 hours a day of transportation, handled by the Manchester Transit Authority, and the cost of that is $14,000 I have it right here. $14,800 or approximately $7,400 a year. And this is a 2-year pilot program. It would start in July of 2015, and we would go on from that. Again, this would be a plan that would allow elderly, anybody that's handicapped, transportation to facilities in the Manchester, Goffstown area, and would also, if there's room, allow people to go into Manchester shopping. It would also allow them to go to the library here in town, Parks and Rec. It all depends on how the transportation and how many people are using it. So I would urge everybody that in the Budget Committee to recommend this article.
Okay, the next one is the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund. That has been on the warrant for several years. It was reconstituted in 2008, and since that time we have bought 3 pieces of fire apparatus with that. We are also scheduled in the CIP matrix to, we'll be looking at buying another piece of fire apparatus next year. So the $200,000 would go towards that, the purchase of that vehicle. That article, it looks like the selectmen have decided to pay for that article using the unreserved fund balance. So that would not have a direct tax impact on the tax rate. The next one is the Public Works, Vehicles, Machinery, and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. This is a new fund. It was proposed by Carl Quorum before he left us, obviously. There are a couple different ways it could work. The way the selectmen have chosen to do it is that 10% of all the vehicles we bought this year, 10% of the purchase price would be put in a capital reserve fund, and 10% would be put in next year, and the next year, and the next year, so that you could replace, by the time those vehicles are ready to be replaced in roughly 10 years, you would have all the money to pay for it. Okay, it would be a good portion of it. So, and that also would be paid for with the unreserved fund balance. The Goffstown Main Street program. Do we have someone here to speak for that? Karen Henderson, you want to come down?
I'm Karen Henderson from the Goffstown Main Street program. I would like to thank you all for your support in the past of the program. We truly, truly appreciate that. We are looking ahead to this year and have some great plans for the program. As you know, we provide a lot of great events for the town, as well as an opportunity for a lot of other nonprofit organizations within the community to raise funds and showcase their individual programs. So we hope that you find value in that, and we hope to have a really great year this year. We are currently looking for an additional or another executive director, but we have a real good game plan for that, and are seeking your approval for that. Thank you.
Okay, and finally, last but not least, is Crispin's House. I believe Al Baines is going to speak to that.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Al Baines. This is the 3rd year that we've applied for the $20,000 warrant article for Crispin's House. It's a major part of our budget. Our actual total budget, our wish list is $80,000. We typically only get to around $60,000 with our programs and our expense of paying our executive director, which we currently don't have an executive director. Unfortunately, Chrissy Curtis left us for a better paying job. We're kind of limited in what we can pay our executive director, and but this warrant article certainly helps us to get there, so that we can at least attract somebody in to do this. We appreciate the town funding this for us. It's made a big difference in our ability to continue our programs with the youth in the community, including the juvenile diversion program, the monthly youth forum at the high school, our new suicide prevention initiatives that are going on here in the community, not only for the youth but also for adults. And our youth attendant program in conjunction with the Goffstown Police Department, and our efforts to fund after-school care for our residents through the YMCA after-school program at the middle school, and all the collaborations that we do with the area organization. So we certainly appreciate it and look forward to this article being funded again this year. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the portion of the evening when we present the budgets and what the money warrant articles are going to be. And now we would like to open it up for questions, comments from the public. There's 2 mics here. You can come up to either one of them and say whatever you want. Okay, don't get too wild on me, people.
Hi, everyone. My name is Max Paul. I had a question on the milfoil, the 15,000. Has that been approved? Is that a done deal, or is that still in the works for possible improvements?
Well, everything is in the proposed budget, so everything is open to the voters' approval at the March town election. Do you mean the amount?
No, just whether it was going to be in the budget or not. I'm here to speak on behalf of adding it to the budget. I am a resident of Goffstown. I do have a house on the river at Danish Park, and I grew up on the river. I'm one of the last surviving members of the original Jolly 7. Some of you may know about that. That river has always been a major player in my summers. It's a wonderful asset to not only the community of Goffstown, but I think the whole southern New Hampshire area is affected by it. It has a huge watershed which goes all the way back to Crotchet Mountain, and I would really appreciate the funding of the milfoil project to help control the milfoil in Glen Lake as well as the Piscataquag River.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that for me? Thanks, Max. My name is Michael Allard, and I'm the president of the Namaski Lake Association, also speaking in favor of the milfoil funding. I have about 40 pages of notes. I'll keep it only about 7 or 8 points, though. We do have a website that has excruciating detail of the entire history of the milfoil problem with the lake. But for those of you who don't know, the milfoil was introduced to the lake as a result of the Mother's Day flood of 2006. Without regular treatments, the lake will be unusable to swimming, fishing, boating, and recreational use whatsoever within 3 seasons. The only legal treatment for the milfoil is as directed by New Hampshire DES with permits from the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture. The Namaski Lake Association was formed and is funded solely for the purpose of coordinating those treatments. To date, since 2009, we've raised $90,000 with the help of the town of Goffstown for treatments in 2010, 2012, 2013, and 2014. Pretty much every stakeholder that has anything to do with this lake, this river, excuse me, has supported it, including the City of Manchester, the Enel North America Dam, the town, the association's 140 members, with both membership fees and donations. It's worth pointing out that we're part of a 10-year project with New Hampshire DES, 10-year plan, whereby each year DES tells us what we have to do to treat the lake, and they give matching funds accordingly, so long as you keep up with the treatment. If we miss one single year, we'll fall out of their good graces, and they'll put the money to somebody else, and it will not be available to us anymore. This year, we heard 2 days ago that the state's only going to be able to match 25% of the cost, as opposed to the 40% that they've normally been able to match. They said that in 2016 they expect to get back to the 40% rate, but there's so many people asking for money, there's so many problems throughout the state, that that's all they have for this current year. So that makes this funding even more important to the association, to the lake. Couple more stats. I'm sorry, I'm just about done, I promise. It's worth pointing out that we did a survey in 2009 when we first formed the association. This is in 2009. There was over 140 Goffstown residents that use the lake on a recreational basis, on a daily basis in the summertime, with an additional 100 residents using it on a weekly basis. There's also 536 outside visitors that come and use that lake on a weekly basis throughout the summertime. And it generates somewhere close to $43,000 per month in summertime commerce, specifically tied to Lake Association. That's gas, boat, trailer registrations, fishing licenses, groceries, cleaning, and maintenance supplies, etc. I'm also here to answer any questions if any of you have any, but I would refer you to the website for most of the detail. That's NamaskiLakeAssociation.com. Thank you.
Great, thank you. NamaskiLakeAssociation.com. How do you spell it? Namaske. Okay. Is that correct? All right. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Betsy Cook, and I am the treasurer for the Goffstown Waterways Association, which was newly formed this year, or 2014, to treat the milfoil on Glen Lake. We're brand new. I don't have half of the details that that gentleman has, so I thank him for all his fine knowledge. But I also was told by the DES that we would only get 25%. We just started last year. We did a herbicide treatment in Glen Lake, which was very successful, brought down the milfoil considerably, but we have to follow it up with a diver-assisted program. We got a bid for that of about $6,000 roughly, and the state is only going to give us a grant for $1,000. So we really, really do need that $5,000 as part of that $15,000 in the budget. Otherwise, we will not be able to go through with the diver-assisted program, and unfortunately, all the herbicide treatment will be for nothing. And I don't want to see that happen. Again, we're brand new. We did manage to raise $3,000 last year, not nearly as much as that gentleman, but again, we're brand new and we're working hard to try to keep up with the milfoil and get it down. The herbicide treatment did do a decent job, but we need to follow it up and continue on a 10-year program as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Fournier, 29 Cove Street. Kind of interesting. I'm going to ask you regards to milfoil. When we talk about $50 million in budget, we're talking more about milfoil than anything else. But I do appreciate the budget committee's efforts in these. I mean, a lot of people have spoken already regarding the milfoil, and I think everyone that does know and looks around our town, and we're fortunate to have a town with such things as a rail trail, lakes, mountains, and I think it's very responsible for us to take care of all of them, the lakes included. So I hope that we take a good look at it and make sure we fund these lakes. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Mike Witten. I'm the Executive Director of the Manchester Transit Authority. I just want to ask for your support tomorrow night for the introductory program for transportation for seniors and those with disabilities. I also wanted to make sure you were aware that the $14,800 in budget requests, not only is it for 2 years, but it represents just 1/5 of the total costs. MTA has worked with the Transportation Committee within the town and made a commitment to find the 80% in funding. We've actually got the grant funding lined up for that. And our plan is that this 2 years in startup funding allows the transportation to grow to the point where the fare box makes this service self-sustaining. So it isn't something that 2 years from now is going to be gone, and it's not something that we plan to come back to you in 2 years for more money. This is just to get the word out, to seed it for a couple of years so that people can learn what it is and when it's available, and then hopefully have it continue from its own revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional comments? Going once, going twice? Oh.
My name is Ricky Allard. I am also here to support the milfoil. I know you guys are probably like, milfoil, milfoil. But anyway, my husband is Michael. And when I tell you the dedication and how this problem has brought together complete strangers on a river, you live on a river, you like wave at each other on your boats, but this has been the most galvanizing, uniforming cause, because it's threatening our way of life, pretty much. You know, we're river people, and so whatever you can do for us, we would appreciate. We are hard workers. Everybody gets together every year, and you know, everybody donates what they can. So I just wanted to make sure you heard my voice too.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no one else who would like to speak, then thank you all for coming out on this very cold night, and that's it.